All right, here we go. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Liquid Weekly podcast. I am your host, Karl Meisterheim. With me, as always, is Taylor Page, my wonderful co-host, and a virus that I have, apparently. So excuse my voice, but Taylor will do the talking, and he's more beautiful anyway. Taylor, I have a question for you.
Yes,
Are
sir.
you familiar with the fact that Shopify is ending support for Shopify scripts?
Yes, there has been some chatter about this.
Has this
Very
caused
concerning.
consternation for you? Have you ever wondered how will you function in a post-Shopify script world?
I
We're gonna
have many times. How long have you been sitting on that?
Since I was in the shower.
Good one.
Thank you. Well, Taylor, I'm excited to introduce our guest for today, Andrea Morone, co-founder of Nextools. He knows everything about Shopify functions. Is going to tell us all we need to know, so we don't have to wonder. So, Andrea, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, guys. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Morone from Nextools, the team. So I'm the co-founder of the company because, let me just tell you a little bit of my background. So I'm working with Shopify since 10 years, pretty much right now. And I started it as a consultancy, as a consultant for an IT company, but I immediately started working also as a freelancer. But then I found that I wanted something more because I wanted to try to provide people a tool. So I had this dream where people were using my apps or my whatever. Okay, because at that time I didn't have an idea of what I will build, and so I just quit and I went all in on software development myself. But I had a lot of works all on Shopify, and I'm from Italy, by the way. And here in Italy, Shopify was not so popular at that time. So I was the only one pushing for Shopify. And one day, I remember I received an email by Shopify, one of that email marketing stuff, that say that 25% of developers on the Shopify App Store earn more than $250,000 per year. And so I said, come on, 25% is 1 on 4. It was an easy math for me because I also thought that I was a guy that, whenever you push yourself, you can reach your the result and what you want to achieve. So I built my first app that at that time was called Push Last. That was a very simple app, but I didn't neither had to think about what to build because it was a functionality that every merchant has to me when they had to build a Shopify store. That was just sorting collection when out of stock products went out of stock. So I built this app, and I also attended the first Shopify app challenge, and I did not win. But I had an honorable mention on the Shopify blog that is still there. And this
awesome.
is when I started to believe that this could be possible. And so then I was able to sell that app. So instead of burning money with Nancy watches or cars or stuff like that, I decided to start Nextools 2 years ago. And so this is when I started looking for functions. At that time, let's say that the Shopify App Store was very crowded because it started growing. So there was this inflation on the number of apps. Imagine that when I built Push Last, there were published like maybe 10 apps per week. Today we are at 80, between 90 apps per week. So 9 times that time. And so I had to start looking where to focus and what to build. And this was the time that I had another requirement by merchant that was managing the payment methods into the checkout. And this at that time was not possible for normal Shopify stores, just for Plus. But I saw this payment customization functions, and this is where the time when I started digging into functions was 2022, maybe late June. So functions were in developer preview, not every function, but maybe they released just discount functions. So and so I started looking at this kind of new technology by Shopify, because I read the announcement that scripts from 2016 that were deprecated in 1 year or two, and I started talking about functions and positioning myself and Nextools as a function company, Shopify function company, because we right now have a suite of 13 apps, and every app that we have does use Shopify functions in some way. So we dig it practically into every kind of functionality possible with functions. But yeah, I do not want to take all the conversation. So
it's really good information as far as like what you saw basically from what happened, and then you just decide to position yourself like, hey, like functions is coming out, I know this is going to be the thing, and put yourself basically in a good position to like know you could provide all the solutions there.
Yeah, exactly. Because with scripts were the old way to extend backend functionality of stores. Okay, so Shopify give you this this functionality to embed little snippet of codes, but was difficult to handle, to manage, and you had to maintain the code. And so you do not have the freedom of something that it's pretty much like an open source stuff, because functions are pretty much an open source stuff for Shopify, and they are like plugin for the Shopify platform, and they are self-contained. So they are great whenever you need to scale. So it's just fine-tune the machine and run the WASM, and that's it. So it's a really good technology, but I am not anyone to say that, because Shopify built it. So it's for sure the best way to extend backend capability. So
tell us,
I'm
sorry, tell us about your company a little bit. You have 30 apps.
Yes.
You have a co-founder.
Yes, because
how do you guys pull that off?
We started with an app that, as of today, after 2 years, made just $6. So and we took 6 months to build that app. So I say we, but at that time
is
it
it
was
still
just
around?
It's still around. It's
okay.
It's called a Hurry Cart. That was for a cart urgency, but I wanted to build something different from all the apps on the Shopify App Store about these apps that say that your cart is going to expire into 1 minute, 30 seconds, and stuff like that. Because I gave merchants the functionality to clear the cart for real. So it was not a fake countdown timer.
Right, it actually happened, which was a problem with a lot of those apps got in trouble, right? Because it was like a fake urgency thing where it's just like, oh no, like
exactly.
It doesn't actually do it, but you actually did it. Okay, cool,
and
cool.
I was also tracking all the carts, so I built a webhook that was communicating with an AWS serverless function that was practically showing you. Imagine the live stats of your Shopify store whenever you go into the Shopify backend and you see 3 carts live, or
the globe.
The globe, exactly. I built the same but for carts, so you could view exactly which products were into the cart of the customers.
That's really cool.
So a live track of products, how they were moving, but was difficult to market this up because the crowd was the Shopify App Store was very crowded of apps like that. So sometimes you have a good idea, but the market fit is a little bit different. It's difficult to position an app and to be able also to market exactly the functionality of the app. And so we had to move on. And my co-founder said, okay, no problem, let's go to the next. And I saw this payment customization stuff, and I said, okay, I'm sure that this one, because like if you know Tonino Lamborghini from Lamborghini the cars, whenever he built a car, he used this sentence: if I like the car, also the world will like the car. And so I thought, if it's needed to me, I'm sure that at least I will find a niche that will need it too. because it's not just for me. So whenever this, as of today, is my how can I say, is the way I found idea, because I do not think about stuff. I just solve my daily problems, and they becomes my apps. So, and this is how HidePay was born. So HidePay at that time was our biggest, and also today, if we want to consider the number of merchants that installed HidePay, is the best one we have into our portfolio. So it was a simple idea born in 3 days, pretty much. We followed the, because then I got on board also another software developer. So we were 2, and we built 13 apps in 2. So it was 1 year full, really full. Yeah. Because we also were able to build our own framework on top of Polaris and on top of Shopify GraphQL. And this is just a little parenthesis. And I wanted to follow the Shopify best practice. So I call it the front-end framework we built. We call it Lumina, like Polaris and Lumina. Okay. And then the back end, we call it Astra. So we have Astra Lumina with the Shopify Polaris and then the GraphQL stuff. And it's it's a romantic way also to feel connected with the main platform. Thanks to these 2 frameworks that are now the foundations of all our apps, we are able to update the framework and then push the updates to all the 13 apps. So this is the way how we maintain all these 13 apps. So if we have to update a component, then we have our continuous integration and continuous development stuff that push the updates to all the containers running the same version of the framework or of the backend. And so at that time we built HidePay, that is stand for Hide Payment Methods. So and we just try it with to be very fast, because the payment customization function was in developer preview. We pushed the app with just one functionality. So hide payment method based on the cart total. That's it. So very drafted.
So if it was like so much money, like hide like PayPal or something, right? Like
exactly. If the cart is greater than 1,000, remove cash on delivery from the list of payment options available into the checkout. Just that. And then merchants started installing the app, and they started to ask us about, could you please update the app, putting this new qualifier or this new condition to hide by market, hide by, shipping method, hide by that, hide by that. And as of today, we have you can create a combination of 72, 73 qualifier into the app. So you can use,
which is really cool. So you kind of built it that's almost like the idea of an MVP, but you picked something that was really easy for customers to understand, or merchants to understand, right? Like everybody understands like the base of like if it's over $1,000, just hide this. And then people started coming up with ideas for you of like, oh, can you also hide it if this happens? And you can just build from there.
Exactly. So the user experience was very simple. So tell me how much you want the card to be qualified to hide this payment option. What is maybe confusing as of today is that with the payment functions and delivery functions, you have the hide operation, not the show operation. And most of the time, people want. Well, I do not know if is the word that someone think in reverse or we are thinking in the reverse. Like, is the scrolling on your trackpad is up or down? That feeling when you use some other laptop, and so we had to fix that, inventing and practically reversing the operation with the I call it the payment methods mapper. So tell me what you want to show and under which condition. And so in HidePay, you have also this functionality that say, okay, for Germany or for the US, show only this payment method. That is not, if it's not US, then hide these payment methods. It's the opposite. So, and whenever we push this update, then we also saw a grow in the installations, because merchants, differently from other apps that maybe were just mocking the API, was much more simple to use and to implement into their store. And after playing with the payment customization, I said, come on, there is the delivery customization is a copycat of the payment customization. And so we built HideShip, and we called them the Hide bundle. So HidePay plus HideShip. So we built HideShip that is exactly the same of HidePay, but you play with the shipping rates into the checkout. Then we received a request by exact same route. So we developed a minimum valuable product, shipped it to the Shopify App Store, then started receiving feedback, improved the app, and also implemented other functionality to connect the carrier rates and display dynamically new carrier rates or shipping rates into the checkout. So HideShip that became a bigger app. And after that, I said, okay, now we need to find a way to group all these functions because I cannot build and maintain a lot of apps splitted by function class. And I saw this huge opportunity of the migration stuff. And I woke up one morning and I remember we were building another app, a completely other app. And I went to the office and I said to everyone, stop everyone, we have to build this app that at that time was called Script Migrator.
Okay.
But then we wanted to transmit how easy it is to migrate from script to function. And so my co-founder said, okay, let's call it SupaEasy. And immediately felt something that is also, you can sell it by itself. That is not just an app by Nextools, it's a company itself. Because it's super easy, the marketing, everything was so easy with that app because you have a value proposition, you have a mission, you have a problem, you have a solution. And from that time, I remember that we built it in May 2023, but until December 2023, we had some kind of zero installs and stuff like that. My co-founder said, come on, where are all these merchants? How is that possible? And
the gold rush hadn't happened yet where people were needing to make it happen.
And I remember that I was keeping saying, let's wait. Let's wait. Do not lose your hope, your trust in SupaEasy. And starting from January this year, we saw the wave of merchants start coming, and this is when we started also releasing updates practically daily because we received a lot of and at that time HidePay in terms of also revenue was the best app we had into our portfolio. But in like 2 months, SupaEasy now is the 70%. Wow. Exactly, was the 70% of the company. We received
to jump in real quick too, just to clarify something, as because you like you mentioned, like you're getting a lot of this feedback, you're getting a lot of merchants and stuff testing out the app and those sorts of things. Because so like HidePay and like some of these other functions, are these accessible? Because they're at the checkout step. Like merchants who aren't on Shopify Plus, we can't add upsells and different things like this or what have you, kind of type thing. But like functions still, so like HidePay, and SupaEasy, like that, there are still things that are accessible for merchants that aren't on Shopify Plus, or is this only for merchants that are on Shopify Plus where you're getting your merchants from for these?
Well, right now, with differently from scripts, you can use Shopify functions on every Shopify plan. So this was a huge updates. So a lot of merchants with the advanced plan, for example, could access the payment customization that they needed that was before only available to Shopify Plus. The main difference is that if you want to build your own custom app with your own custom function, you need to be on Plus. Otherwise, if you want to use Shopify functions, you need to rely on apps on the Shopify App Store. And there are also some functions that are available to under Shopify request. So as an example, the pickup and delivery point API or the order routing API or other functions that are on developer preview or under request. But as for now, the only difference that comes to my mind is with cart transform function. With the cart transform function that is available to every plan, there is an operation into the output of the function. I do not know if you want me to explain a little bit also about the technology of functions, how they work.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I didn't want to interrupt you between that, but I was just making sure, like clarifying for my own sake, because I think, especially when checkout extensibility rolled out, right? Like there was everything's in preview, and then it was like, well, it's in preview, but then also like, so you can start using stuff, but this is plus only, right? So for a lot of like checkout UI extensions and stuff like this, and so and so in my mind, checkout extensibility is coupled with functions, since we're moving in that direction, right? And so I know from that perspective, there are a lot of things that are still locked down for plus only, particularly at that checkout step, right? Where they pre-checkout, right? Where they're putting in payment information, they're putting in their address and stuff like this. And so, but it sounds like for the most part, most of the things for Shopify functions are accessible for all from the basic plan and up, essentially, other than like if they wanted to build a custom app. But yeah, I think it would be really great to get into the technology side of things as well. I think that'd be really cool if you want to dig into that a little bit. Like I said, I didn't want to knock you off there from when you were starting to roll into SupaEasy and stuff, because we definitely need to swing back around to that between SupaEasy, because I also want to make sure we have time to talk about SupaStudio too, because I think that's really cool. But yeah, like why don't you talk tech a little bit about?
Well,
about
I will be really fast, I promise. So that
I'll try not to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So the way it works is that whenever you install an app, the app has already deployed functions to the Shopify, let's say, platform. Okay. So whenever you create an instance, to create an instance of, a run of this function, you need to attach a configuration to the function. For example, for the payment customization, you, using Shopify GraphQL, create an instance of that function with attached a meta field that does contain your configuration. So whenever the customer interact with your checkout, then Shopify run your function and pass in the cart. So your function receives the cart, and you define which fields you want to take from the cart using the configuration in your Shopify function deployed. So for example, you can ask Shopify to give you back into the function the cart total or the line items present into the cart. Based on that, then you apply the configuration that the merchants created and that is stored into the meta field. After that, you need to give back to Shopify the output of the function, and the output is exactly what Shopify defined into the function documentation or into the function output itself. And the fact is that the function needs to run in 100 milliseconds. And this 100 milliseconds corresponds to 11 million instructions. This is why there is this limitation of 11 million instructions. So they do not want to slow down the customer experience, because whenever the function runs, the customer is waiting for the output of the function. And so this is why it's difficult to raise this number of 11 million instructions. This is why a lot of developers do not understand that it's not about the number of instructions, it's the time taken by the language you use to run that instruction. So whenever you use, for example, JavaScript to build this your Shopify functions, JavaScript is very flexible, but in terms of performances, it's not so good as other languages like Rust, for example. Whenever you use Rust, come on, it's 10 times faster than...
That's what you're using then at Nextools with SupaEasy and everything, you're using Rust?
We use both. We use both because also here we have other limitations, because Rust is really powerful, but is really big. So whenever you write code with Rust and you compile it, the bundle size immediately reach the cap that Shopify said that is 256 kilobytes. So if you just use a library to parse the JSON, you are at half of the bundle size. So just some instructions, and then you finish the space to put in other configuration stuff. So you have to choose what you need to build. And this is why I built SupaStudio, but we will talk it a little bit later. So regarding the functionality, this is the flow. So Shopify send the cart to your function, you execute your logic on top of the cart, and you give back to Shopify the output of your operation. And then the customer see the expected result or what the merchants wanted to hide, sort, or the discount to apply and stuff like that. So this is all the flow. And differently from scripts, before you had the checkout.liquid page that you can you can customize yourself using code. And today you have checkout extensibility. So with checkout extensibility, whatever you need to put into the checkout, you need to be on plus. Mm-hmm. But the good thing is that Shopify opened the thank you page, order status page, customer account extension that is now available to everyone, not only for Shopify Plus. Mm-hmm. So this is also a good way to extend the store. But a lot of merchants want to dig into the checkout, but as for now, it's still restricted to.
Right.
Yeah, and there is no way. So you can put an app block into the checkout without being on plus. And we.
Yeah, and that was, I think that was where, so I've had people, ask for things like, hey, we want to change, we do want to change like how, like some of the shipping information gets presented, right, for your shipping options. We want to change this name to something else or whatever, and we can't necessarily access it with just what we do in some instances. The quote unquote hack is just use Shopify, and like you create a custom shipping rate that you include whatever text content that you need in that space, right? Versus now, like what you can do is you can have a function deployed, right, that now like alters the text, because it has to be text if we're doing, or it has to be a Shopify function, because there's no checkout extensibility targets that we can use to change anything with something like the text content of shipping rates. We can drop banners in and do different things or what have you. But if you wanted to do something like that, you would need something like a Shopify function, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
But you can just rename or change the title of the shipping rate. You cannot change the description, for example.
Right, the description's the problem.
Exactly. A lot of merchants, for example, use external carrier rates API to retrieve the rates. And into the description, maybe they have the next day delivery and they want to change the description. But unfortunately, you can just change the rate name. So the workaround they use is to put into the rate name the delivery time not guaranteed.
Yep. Yeah. I say I've done that for plenty of shops before. We had where it wasn't, they're not on plus, so we couldn't do anything when it was checkout.liquid or anything like weird there or anything. And so renaming the name of it, the title for that, but not being able to touch the description. So I don't know, this is a good segue to start talking then a little bit about like, hey, like, we had scripts were great. Karl loves, Ruby, so, but now we're migrating away from that. And that's kind of, the main problem that SupaEasy solves necessarily. And then you saw more problems born out of that, where that led ultimately to SupaStudio. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that. You talked a little bit about like the difference between scripts and functions and these sorts of things. So I don't know if you want to dig further into that, or Karl's getting ready to talk. So
well, let me preface it. First of all, I'm still here for those of you listening. But also, Andrea, this is very interesting to me that you wrote this app, because, when this news came out, I think every developer was like, oh, wouldn't it be amazing to create an app that could translate scripts into functions? But how to implement such a thing was beyond me. So I'm very curious, as you explain your story, I'd love to hear more about how you approached that technical problem, because that seems like a very interesting one.
Sure. So at that time, whenever I thought about building SupaEasy, the first thing that come to my mind was a migrator. So this why the first name was a script migrator. But unfortunately, not every script functionality has been migrated to a corresponding Shopify function stuff. So this is why was not, because I also built an AI tool that lets you build the new function if you just copy and paste the Ruby script. But unfortunately, there were some operations with scripts, like the reject code operation on discount, that as per the technology of new functions is not available with function. Because discount functions this is, I think, another interesting thing to say, because not everyone understands this flow of how functions run. So the first functions that run into the checkout context are product discount functions and order discount functions before the other functions. So whenever you have deployed deployed a product discount function and an order discount function, they run at the same time. So let's imagine that they run in parallel and they both receive the cart at the same time. So there is no way to apply a discount based on an already discounted subtotal amount. So they all receive the cart at the same time. Then both provide the output to Shopify, and Shopify choose the best discount to apply, because only the best discount will apply. So this is the first step. We have product discount functions and order discount functions. They receive the cart and provide the output to Shopify. After that, we have another function that runs standalone, that are delivery functions. So the delivery functions receive the discounted cart if there is a discount. So using delivery functions, you can say, for example, if the cart is under a certain amount after the discount, but only into delivery function and the other function, but not in product and order, because they run at the same time. After the delivery function run, there are all the other functions. And this is strange, but shipping discount function run after the delivery customization function. But if you think about it, it's normal, because you first need to retrieve the rate to be able to discount them. So this is why shipping discount run after the delivery customization functions and product and order discount. So into the shipping discount functions is the only function where you can offer, for example, free shipping if the cart is greater than 800, but if someone apply a discount code that lower that amount of 800 to 90, then the shipping discount can see the discounted amount into the cart. I'm sorry if it's too complex or tricky, but it's to explain, because a lot of merchants...
It makes sense, and it's helpful to learn kind of like the check down, because there is a lot of that. Like we just did that with a merchant that I worked with. They were running a promotion specifically for, spend so much money, right, over Black Friday, we're going to send you a free gift card. But the problem is we're also running a bunch of discount codes. And so people would get their cart right up to the $200 they have to spend, but then they'd apply a discount, because all the way throughout the shop, it'd say, hey, you spent $200, you're getting this gift card. And you hit checkout and you're like, great, I'm getting this checkout, but now we apply a discount. And we wanted a message to pop up to say like, hey, your cart just fell below the threshold. You're no longer getting a discount. So yeah, it's important to understand that, because it's what the end customer is going to end up experiencing. So that is really interesting, because it is confusing how you have to keep track of all that all the way through the line.
Yes, exactly. So I built a map of the status of the function just following the cart total. If you follow the cart total through all the functions, so I deployed a class of every function, and I followed all the cart total in every function log, and I was able to reconstruct the running time. So in your specific case, for example, you can use a checkout validation, because checkout validation together with the payment customization, they run at the end. So they receive the delivery lines, the shipping discount, the product discount, order discount. So into a checkout validation function, you are able to check if there is a discount applied, or if there are line items that are discounted by a product discount. But something that is still missing as an input to the function are discount code. So you are not able to check which discount code has been used by the customer into the checkout. And here I have a solution that I will share with everyone. So it's not a secret. And the trick is to use a cart attribute, because the idea is to use an headless checkout extension that you put into the checkout. So unfortunately, it's for Plus only. And this checkout extension does listen for updates into the checkout. And there is an API that is able to retrieve the discount code. So you can retrieve the discount code whenever it is applied and pass it into a cart attribute. Whenever you synchronize the cart attribute, this retrigger all the functions. So all the functions will rerun again. And I was able to use this trick also this is very difficult, to apply a discount on an already discounted product. Example,
Oh, wow.
you have a product of 800. You provide a discount of 10%, so the total is 90. You want to provide additional 10%, and you will provide a 9 discount on top of 90. So it's discount after discount. This is because using a headless checkout extension, you are also able to read discount allocations. So doing some math, you are able to calculate how much is the amount after the previous applied discount to have the final discount amount. Yeah, a merchant has...
Nice. That's really clever. And I didn't realize that it's like the discount
I
input
built
was
an app
kind of a
to...
black box until you use something like that to listen to it. So you're having to use the checkout extension in coordination with the function to make sure you can actually get that discount. That's really
Exactly.
interesting.
I built an app, by the way, to achieve that. So to make it simple, because a lot of, you can imagine, I built apps practically, last year was 1 per month, our average of
Jeez,
releasing.
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, 12 apps, 13 apps in 1 year. So with this app, you are practically able to just drag the app component into the checkout, and then using some switches, select what you want to synchronize into a cart attribute. That could be, for example, something that is also missing as an input to the Shopify functions are the billing information, that when you sell digital products, you do not have shipping information. And sometimes people want to build functions on top of billing information. Like whatever the billing is different from the shipping, then maybe apply this discount or run a checkout validation function, block the checkout and stuff like that. You cannot do that. The only way is to use a checkout extension to synchronize the billing information into a cart attribute and then retrieve from the cart attribute that kind of information. And another, I think, huge usage is to synchronize the shipping information into the order discount or product discount function. Because if you remember the previous flow, whenever you run the product discount and order discount, the delivery function has not yet run. So you do not have the shipping address. This is why into the Shopify documentation, there is a limitation that say delivery groups will be always empty in product discount and order discount. And people say, can you put the shipping information into the product discount and order discount? But technically, the product discount and order discount, they run first. So they have not received it.
Yeah.
They have not received yet the shipping address. So they cannot put this information into it. But using the trick of a checkout extension that synchronizes the shipping information, you will force the product discount to run again. And at that time, you can retrieve the shipping, for example, zip code from the cart attribute. I had a merchant that used that to provide a discount to customers that were going to a fair where he was present, and using the zip code as a shipping address, then was automatically applying the discount. So
that's really clever.
This was the trick that we used there. Otherwise, it's not possible. So I'm sharing with everyone this little trick that we found that to make this possible. So it's like a bridge of information between the checkout and the function. You bring information in the function using the cart attribute. And
that feels like a missing piece to a lot of things. So I think that's the consistent feedback that I've heard a lot from functions as someone who doesn't dig into functions, is it feels so much like a black box, and it feels like you've popped open a lot of things that feel very black box about functions.
Yeah, now it's almost 2 years and a half that, but I repeat, I had to solve problems for merchants. So I dig into the Shopify documentation. I talked with I went to the Shopify edition back in June to Toronto, and I spent all my time.
Oh, you were there too? I missed you. You know who wasn't there? Karl. I have to take every opportunity to rub it in his face. I'm disappointed that we didn't get to connect. But so did you get to talk to I'd say Nick? I think Nick Wesselman would have been there, and
yes, absolutely,
a couple of other folks.
Dev Cameron. So we speak a lot, to be honest, also on Slack, because I try to provide feedback to Shopify about what maybe is needed by by the merchants. So another
I
thing
feel like
that
you're really
is
helpful in the Slack too. When other people have there is, for those of you that aren't in there that do functions, then in the partner Slack there is a channel dedicated specifically to Shopify functions. And so I see you in there all the time when people have questions popping off on stuff. And so now, have you spent much time in the new dev community as well that they have?
not yet,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, because just because we had this Black Friday, Cyber Monday stuff,
Yeah.
and you can
You ran
imagine
almost
people
2 billion functions, right?
2 billion,
I
2
don't
billion.
want to steal your thunder there. I remember seeing that, and I wanted to make sure that I mentioned it while we were talking today. That's huge, man. That's congrats. That's amazing.
It's really huge, and I always say, imagine if I had to run all these executions myself.
Right?
Come on. Yeah, it would be a mess, also a waste of money that now we are selling HidePay for $3 per month now. But this is just because Shopify is in charge of running the functions for you. Otherwise, would not be possible. In fact, I try to because before, well, in the timeline, just a little look back through, when I built Push Last, then I built another app that was called Punchmetrics. And Punchmetrics was also featured by Shopify on the homepage of the Shopify App Store in 2017. And I was a solo developer, but the problem was that this huge exposition brought to me a merchant, a very big merchant. And imagine that Punchmetrics was an app like Google Analytics plus Heatmap plus all these other stuff together. So for every customer of every merchant, I was recording the position of the mouse of the X and Y, and for every half of second. So imagine the traffic of a very, very big merchants fired to my servers that I was just with like a simple SQL server because I was young and I was not prepared to this huge traffic. So from that experience, I learned a lot because this experience leave a sign in your soul to now build something that the first thing is it has to be scalable. So whenever I feel that I cannot do that because maybe I do not have the resources or stuff like that, I didn't do that. So this is why
and your team is still like, how big is the team now? Because I know originally it was you and the co-founder, and then you hired another developer. Like how big is the team now at 30 apps and stuff?
Well, we in terms of developer, we are 3, me plus other 2. So and because now I'm focusing more on SupaStudio, SupaEasy and SupaStudio, and the other 2 are managing and updating the other apps. So
awesome.
So this is how we split the team. And then we have other 5 to 7 that are in charge of marketing, partnership, LinkedIn stuff, or blog articles and all these other things. But we are a small team, very agile. So whenever a merchants come to us with a requirement, we are able to ship to production in like 24 hours pretty much, because we are using our framework is very easy to implement new functionality. So it's more like that we have problems into finding the use case that we can put into our app that in building it. So yeah, we need to, with SupaEasy for me and SupaStudio is really clear about functions and about the migration. So I have a lot of idea to improve the app and to push other updates like scheduling the Launchpad version into SupaEasy, so that you can, because with Black Friday, a lot of merchants had to prepare and then just turn on and turn off payment customization and delivery customization at midnight because you cannot schedule that. So imagine if you can build a campaign containing all the functions that you need to turn on or turn off at specific time, and then just schedule it, and that's it. So this is the idea of a new functionality that I'm going to release in SupaEasy, called SupaStudio. And then I also thought about another way to build functions that is pretty much like Flow of Shopify. So it's integrated with Shopify Flow, because there are some campaigns where, for example, you have a discount code that for the first 20 usages gives, let's say, the 50%. Then you want to lower down immediately at 30%, and then at 20%. So they are dynamic function that update themselves after the usage of the function. So this is
that
a
would
new
be amazing.
functional. Yeah, but it's still because merchants asked about this functionality. So it's a problem solution. This is the way to improve, to go, and to release new updates to the app.
Now, I'm going to butt myself in here for a moment, Taylor, before we get... I know you want to talk about SupaStudio and all that sort of stuff too. But Andrea, there's a lot of developers listening to this podcast. Well, at least one or two, I think. And, in working with functions, obviously the CLI provides some tooling around that. But I have found it to be a little difficult at times to be very efficient in the work in terms of getting feedback on, are my queries correct? Why is it not working when it doesn't work? And there's ways around that, but I'm curious, can you speak at all to some of the developer experience in terms of how you approach writing functions and how you've been able to get the quick feedback cycle in terms of what you're doing? Is any tips or tricks you might have people might be interested in hearing?
Well, unfortunately, this is one of the things that is still missing with the development experience with functions that are logs. So, well, since they were born to now, a lot of things changed. So the Shopify team pushed now the log streaming into the CLI. So whenever you have a function running, there is an environment variable that you need to turn on to have the logs right into your CLI whenever you have the Shopify Dev running. So this is a good way to see immediately why the function is not working, or which kind of result has been provided by Shopify. Then most of the time is because of the input is missing some field or stuff like that. I also built a Visual Studio Code extension that is called GraphQL Query Cost, that is useful whenever you need to build a function. It does count the cost of the query you are requesting to Shopify, because there is a limitation of 30 fields, but not every field is counted as one. For example, meta fields are counted as 3. So this is really useful to check how much it costs to run your GraphQL function. And then other trick, what I did is forward the logs into SupaEasy, so into the app itself. So whenever you build a function using SupaEasy and save it, you can share the logs and retrieve the logs directly from the app without having to ask the app provider to forward you to the logs or to check them what is going on. Right now, the typical errors are for instruction count limit exceeded, so your function is not so efficient. And before, this was also because something that happened a lot of time is that big stores, big merchants do have a lot of bots that puts, I do not know how do they do practically all the stores into the cart, like 400 line items, and this exceeded the input size limit of Shopify. Now they raised also this limitation into the they just told about that into the winter edition, so they double it. So now it's possible to have a big cart just to let you scale up to 200 line items, and after 200 line items, then also the number of instructions starts scaling together with the number of line items into the cart. And yeah, another typical error is with the input variable passed as an input to the function. For example, whenever you need to search for for a collection, you need to pass the collection ID. You do not need to pass the collection name, or the market is the market ID. So you need always to play with the ID, not with the with names. And what else I can suggest? Well, unfortunately, that's it, because another thing that is missing is the search functionality into the logs. Imagine my Black Friday. I had 2 billion run. I had merchants asking to me, I had a cart at 6 p.m. that did not work fine. The discount did not apply. Can you look at it? Come on. And you cannot search for the My Shopify domain of the store. So it's right now a little bit impossible. However, with SupaEasy, whenever you share the logs and retrieve the logs into the app itself, there is a little search. So I always use SupaEasy. I do not use the partner dashboard anymore to check the logs, because it's much more efficient to me to check the logs. Also, when I do support for merchants. So this is the best way for me to play with functions.
So your tip to developers is to develop your own function creation app and then make it easy to use internally. That's good. Use your own tools. That's cool. You mentioned SupaStudio a moment ago. Do you guys want to segue into that now? This would be a good time.
Yeah, sure. So this was another problem we had with merchants, where you encounter, for example, limitation by Shopify function, where you need to build a very specific function, and is in SupaEasy maybe is available only in JavaScript. So you need to build a custom function in Rust. So the only way to do that is to deploy your own custom app, but then you have to handle the Shopify CLI, the updates. Then you have to play with, you have to manage a repository where you need to have your code, or for example, functions where you need to embed static files. Imagine, this is a pretty typical, you have a delivery customization function where you want to block specific zip codes. But let's say that you have a list of 8,000 zip codes, and each zip code is 5 characters. Now, whenever you save the configuration into the function, you are saving the configuration into the meta field of the function. And right now, the meta field of the function is limited to, I think, 10. Now is 60,000 kilobytes or stuff like that. Maybe I could be wrong. Before was 10,000. But the issue is that whenever you overcome this limitation, so you go over this number of characters, then the Shopify function meta field does return null. So you cannot build also a simple function like that where you want to block specific zip codes. So the way to handle that is to build a custom function where you embed a CSV file from where you read the zip codes statically, and then they are into the function. How can you do that? The only way is to use SupaStudio. So SupaStudio is an hosted custom app that is running for you into an isolated container into our infrastructure. So imagine that Shopify is running your functions, and we are running your headless app that run your function. So it's a serverless hub for you, and is the only way to achieve some functionalities, and is also the best way to not have to manage or maintain a custom app or a front end stuff and stuff like that. And I'm also mocking Cursor. So with SupaStudio, you can just use the AI to explain what you need to build, and with this in-context AI tool that I instructed on Shopify functions. So it's really good into building functions in whatever language you need to use. So with SupaStudio, you can use assembly script, you can use Rust, you can use JavaScript, because it's just a custom app that we are running for you, but we are giving you the instruments that will let you build functions faster. We also built a library that is called Quasar, just to follow the naming convention, that is a series of let's say, preset of classes that you can use to build your function. As an example, let's imagine you want to build a function that check the cart total. And if it's over 1,000, you want to hide the cash on delivery payment method into the checkout. Using Quasar, you can just instantiate a new class where you say new cart total qualifier greater than 1,000, hide cash on delivery. Just one line of code, because behind there is Quasar that is executing the logic for you. So it's very fast. It's not just the custom app, but also the library that is behind that help you to build functions very faster. And they are also very easy to read. Also, if you are not a developer, you can read the syntax and understand what they are doing. So, but there are a lot of other functionalities present in SupaStudio, because with SupaStudio, you have access also to the other functions that are limited to the custom apps, like the pickup and delivery point functions, the order routing functions that are restricted to only 2+, and you have access to the network calls. So there are the network calls that are available also for checkout validation. So you can build a checkout validation function connected to an external business rule engine, for example, where you send your cart or your customer, whatever, then execute the logic and give back the result into a checkout validation function using an external API call into functions. But this is restricted to Plus and custom app. But with SupaStudio, you can do that. So it depends on the requirements. Whenever you need to extend your backend logic, and big brands do have this kind of requirements or integration with NetSuite or other tools, then they go with SupaStudio. There is a little of learning step, because it's not for merchants. I provide support and I build function every day right now. I think I built more than 1,000 functions, maybe 2,000, I think. All different, not the unique functions, but all the combinations and all the logic that merchants ask to me to build. And yeah, I think so. And I started now grouping all these functions into a function library. That, why not? I'm thinking about open sourcing it also to others, so they can just, if they want to have their own custom app, just take the code and run it wherever they want. That now is already available into SupaEasy. So,
Andrea, you're exhausting me. I don't know how you are so productive. It's amazing what you and the team there pulled off. And how can folks learn more about SupaStudio or even get their hands on it? Is it available at this point?
just go to SupaEasy.com. We released the new section about SupaStudio that explain how you can use this new functionality that is already embedded into SupaEasy. But as for now, the best way and what I try to do is to have a one-to-one call to everyone that needs, could be the agency or the merchant that needs to have this functionality, because I want to check if they really need this kind of extra super customized tool, because otherwise I didn't want to oversell or provide tools that they do not need. And whenever I do this kind of consultancy, sometimes I maybe say, okay, you do not need SupaEasy to do this simple customization. Just use HidePay, it's $3. Also talking against my business, but my vision was always to build products, not to make money. Money will come if they will come. But my idea is to sell the product and have merchants happy about what they are using, something that is useful. The customer support is great. And whatever you are doing, because at the end of the day, you feel fulfilled by this kind of sentiment. And imagine merchants started sending me stuff to thanks for my support, and they always ask, okay, but how much it will cost your consultancy? And I say nothing. It's included. I'm selling you my tool. Why do you have to pay for the tool that I'm selling? So just subscribe to the plan you need. And we do also do some kind of check on our merchants on the functionality they are using and if they are on the correct plan. And sometimes we call them and say, okay, you need to downgrade. You are spending money because of this functionality. You are not using this functionality and you do not need this functionality. So you can just choose the basic plan that is $3, $4, or whatever it is. But yeah, and also because we are using functions, so we do not have this running cost, this high running cost. So I do not want to lucrate or make money on top of something that is practically so cheap for us. So I just want to share the money we have with the rest of the team, and then provide the best support we can and build the best functional product we can build that is in our capacity. So
that's amazing. I can tell you're not an American capitalist. We appreciate your perspective on profit and value generation. It is refreshing. Taylor, is there anywhere else you wanted to take this conversation before we kind of steer it towards the third half of the show?
The third half of the show. No, I think I want to make sure that we covered those things. And the biggest thing, and we'll get all those links and stuff, and we'll make sure that those are in the show notes and everything as well to make sure people find out about that. Because yeah, that's, like I said, I feel like that's your superpower. Andrea here is just
nice.
Like the whole everything that I've heard about functions feeling like a black box. I feel like you've cracked that open for a lot of people. So there's a lot of really good tools that you have available that's made that easy, and particularly with the people that we have on my end of things from client-side services panicking on like the scripts migration. Although, to be fair, the biggest holdouts we're waiting on at the moment are actually some of the bigger apps and stuff that are still relying heavily on scripts. So maybe I need to put you in touch with some of these big name apps and stuff to get you to get them moved over to functions. But yeah, I think we've covered everything here that we wanted to cover. Karl, is there anything else? Any other burning questions that you have about functions?
I'm just super impressed by everything.
Super impressed. There you go.
Andrea has been doing there. I have tons of questions. I could have this conversation for hours.
Wow.
Yeah, cool. But no, I think for the sake of people that are listening, we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, we're running in. So, well, real quick, I say I don't know. I feel like we could do a whole episode on the changelog section that we have here, just because we just had Shopify editions drop. Did y'all, real quick, did y'all actually do the whole thing where you watched them surf through all the channels, the TV thing on the boring editions? Did you do it?
I did.
Did you? It was so much. Karl's like, no.
No,
Karl, you need to at some point. It's pretty trippy.
I can tell how many channels there were into the edition. So was
188, right?
Yeah, correct.
Like,
188.
Yeah, it was. We did a watch party in Shop Dev Alliance, the Slack, and it was just like I could barely pay attention to what they were announcing because it was just so wild.
They're incredible.
Yes, amazing. So not the boring edition was not very boring at all. And we talked to Ben a little bit in the last special episode here about some of the liquid specific stuff. So I'll just real quick highlight. We actually already talked quite a bit about functions, like that being a big deal. Now they, resource limits will now scale with cart size. So after you get at those 200 line items, you talked about, you'll be able to use more resources than previously. And so that was a huge piece to that as well. And they got that launched, I think right before Black Friday. That was the app discount. So that was the other thing in the changelog that we wanted to make sure to call out. The increased limits for automatic function-based discounts, big jump from 5 to 25. That being like really, really huge. That they were able to launch before Black Friday. So that was kind of a big deal for that. And like I said, we'll link all these up. A couple of items that were just part of editions and not really in the changelog per se, but theme blocks. So if you're a theme developer and you've seen these like global theme blocks thing being pushed for so long, those are now general availability, not just in developer preview. Interestingly enough, if you're in the online store editor, if you go into a theme, there will be a blocks folder there now. It's just part of the theme architecture, and it'll be empty. But I was trying to figure it out because we were doing it on a call, and so I ran like a git pull to try to pull this in, but because it was an empty file, it wasn't pulling in at all. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just create this file myself or whatever, kind of type thing. And so we did that. We'll link up. There's a quick start tutorial on that. That and the other point, meta objects theme settings that also was announced at Editions, but came out in the changelog as well. So now it just makes it easier where you can set meta objects in the customizer as an option for an input setting for merchants, which is really helpful because we're meta objecting all the things anymore. So other quick things real quick. Like I said, there's too many to mention, but just a wrap up here on new customer accounts name change. So they are no longer new customer accounts. We talked to Patrick about this several weeks ago. They're just customer accounts. And so that's moving into Shopify's new architecture there with along the lines of checkout extensibility. We have extensibility for customer accounts as well. And the classic customer accounts, because that was too positive, are now legacy customer accounts. And those eventually will be gone. So that's just something for folks to pay attention to. And then other real interesting thing for devs, Shopify did release and announce here with Editions, they now have a reference app for Shopify subscriptions. So the Shopify subscriptions app now actually has a reference app that you can check out. I thought that was pretty neat. I haven't had a chance to dig into it yet, but I thought that was really, really interesting. And kind of excited to dig into that because subscriptions are a pain. And so it'll be kind of interesting to be able to dig into that a little bit. So, Karl, we usually transition here to the life, work, and picks of the week stuff.
Finally, we have functions in draft order. Just to mention this because it's the most requested functionality by merchants. So right now,
yes, the draft orders. I forgot to mention. I made a mental note because you talked about this before we even hopped on about that being a big deal, and I didn't even mention it. Yes, so functions now available also for draft orders. That was also announced. I'll make sure I'll update show notes for that too. We'll have that in there as well. Good call out.
And the gift card stuff. If you want to say something else about
oh man, like the gift cards. I didn't want to open that box. That's big. So the gift card. Sorry, small segue. So Andrea and I had hopped on and talked because I had just posted about they just made this available where you can hide the gift card field, right? And stuff, and we can do this with functions. And so I don't know if you saw this or if you have played around with this a little bit, but folks had mentioned my hope was that we'd be able to also hide the discount field because right now you enter the gift card and the discount code in the same spots. And so that was my thought. But someone was saying like it's separate. Like they can hide the gift card, but the discount field would still be there. I don't know if you've played around with this at all.
Not yet, but if I have to say, because of the I saw the documentation, so they are just passing the gift card option as a payment option. So whenever you hide it, you cannot interact with the UI. So you are not hiding nothing into the UI. It's just that maybe will work maybe much more like a checkout validation that like a really hiding stuff. So whenever you provide an operation where you hide the gift card, that it will return an error into the front. Just that.
See, my hope or my goal at some point, and something I've asked for a while,
is to hide the input field.
We want it gone in some instances because I work in some shops they don't do gift cards, so we don't care about gift cards at all, anyways. And but they want the option for something like a sale to just be able to completely hide the discount option, period, because we're running an automatic discount that is the best deal. And so now the UI is automatic discount. It'll show up right when you hit checkout, and someone will try to manually enter in a discount code. And they'll find, oh, this isn't the best one. So they'll have to then remove it. So there's this whole back and forth on them trying to make sure they've got the best deal. Versus we'd love to just be able to hide the thing. And the only way you can do that currently is if you remove all the discount codes that are in that shop, which is not great in the sense that we have like 15 different apps that are creating discount codes already. And so then having to re-enable them as necessary and these sorts of things seems like
But you can use the checkout validation stuff together with the attribute into the cart attribute to check if there is a discount code applied to the checkout and then fire a checkout validation that will pop up an error to the customer. This is what I always use. This is really functional.
That's great. I'm gonna have to test this out now. See, look at that. I'm always learning stuff. That's why it's the only reason I do the podcast at all, so that way people can solve my problems.
It's helpful. Awesome. Well, hey, let's wrap up with picks of the week. We just do those. That's cool.
Yes, sir.
All right,
you don't want to keep talking, huh?
Well, I could be here forever, but Andrea
is your pick going to be Robitussin?
No, it's on the
NyQuil.
No. Those all did come to mind. Honestly, no. I wanted to do one that was a pun. So my pick of the week is radon mitigation because it sucks. Another pun. For those of you not familiar with radon, this is a wonderful reality here. I'm sure it's global, but particularly in certain parts of our country, here in the United States, where there's a naturally occurring soil gas that's radioactive, and it tends to pool in people's houses. And the EPA has certain guidelines around what's at a safe level. It's considered, I think, the number 4 cause of lung cancer. Now, the science behind it, I've been looking into it. Yeah, anyway, long story short, they recommend that you test, and if you have high levels, that you get it mitigated. The way that it typically is mitigated is you drill holes in the floor of the lowest level of your house, typically a basement or a slab. You stick a big pipe in there, and you suck the air out so that the gas tends to go up and out of the house as opposed to just kind of come up into your living area. So we just had it done recently. I'd had one before. It got ripped out when we did some work on the house, and I was testing my levels, and they were really high. So like, well, I don't know how I feel about this. It's a long-term thing, but it's one of those things that you can avoid. So radon mitigation. It sucks. How about you, Taylor? You got a pick?
You wanted my pick? I was going to let our guests go next.
We can let our guests go.
Pick. That's...
Also, sorry, the whole thing, I really wanted to say this too. The guy I chose to hire to do this work, I met him on Reddit. He was on the Radon subreddit, and I found out that he was working in my area. So shout out to...
you were so bold.
Yeah.
Meeting someone from Reddit to come into your
he did a great job. He had great reviews. He's like, you're the first guy I referred to you off Reddit. I'm like, yeah, hell yeah. So a lot of fun. Anyway.
That's amazing.
Andrea, do you have a pick?
Well, for me, for example, is Race with Karl. So like Toby, because I saw that he also has this kind of passion. So for me, it's going into track with my race car. So I do not spend money other than on my car. So I know that could seem something for boys or for kids, but it's a real passion. So yeah, this is my race on Sunday.
That's so cool. You know who else is into that? Toby, obviously. DHH, who just joined the board, founder of Rails. I mean, it's a cool circle you're in, Andrea.
Yeah.
All right. My pick of the week is going to be, I don't think I've talked about this before, and I know I'm going to get some looks, but it's
safe place.
Some software that I use for SEO type gigs called Screaming Frog. So it's just basically this like really smart crawler. I relatively recently learned I can also use it to kind of help out with accessibility audits as well. When on shops that I work with where we need to kind of do like a health check and those sorts of things. So it's really helpful as far as like just being able to catch a lot of information quickly and go over a couple of different things. It was referred originally to me by probably the smartest SEO guy that I know. I don't do a ton of SEO. I don't do content SEO, just technical stuff. Karl, stop it. Like, you don't do anything SEO related. Stop it. But yeah, he, years ago. And so it's like one of those that like, I just pay for it every year and just don't think about it, even though it's, a little bit pricey, but it saves me a ton of time, just being able to pull in reports and stuff like this. So Screaming Frog, it's a UK based outfit, I believe, but really, really good stuff. They put out a lot of good content as well.
Amazing. All right. Well, I could talk for hours, although I've got enough imposter syndrome now from listening to all Andrea's accomplished. I need to go curl up on the bed for a while.
I'm not really a developer. Like, oh my gosh.
Done with my life. But Andrea, thank you so much for taking the time and all the stuff you taught us today. And we'll be sure to catch up with you again.
Thanks to you guys. Thanks to you guys for having me. So whenever need support with functions, I'm practically everywhere. So Slack,
got you in
Twitter,
Slack
LinkedIn.
now. So yeah, we're gonna get you.
Yeah.
I got all sorts of questions now.
I will wait for you, like in the movie.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us and sticking around. We'll look forward to catching you on the next one. You guys have a great week, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.